And outside looking in, you essentially started your journey from bodybuilding into the self-development spiritual realm. What was like that push or the shift in you that encouraged that further aspect of development?
It's interesting to hear the outside perspective because the personal development piece of it was present the entire time. And it was actually bodybuilding that gave me the platform for my deepest interpersonal perspective and work. And that's really what started it. So when the outside world saw the shift into personal development, it had already been years that I had been focusing on that. And it was actually bodybuilding that gave me the platform for that. Because if you think about it, when you're a competitor, you're eating all clean, nutrient dense foods. You're typically not drinking, not going out, not partying. You live a very different lifestyle. So for me, it really allowed me this platform of this lifestyle where I got to eat really good foods. Back in the day, I definitely still drank. I don't drink anymore these days, but when I started bodybuilding, it was like my excuse to tell my friends of why I couldn't go out with them, when in reality, I was already experiencing a shift of not desiring that much anymore. And so bodybuilding back then gave me that platform to be able to be sober, eat clean food, to exercise. And I feel like I just got to this really clear state. And in that really clear state, I was then able to take a deeper look inward. So the shift externally, when I finally did share more of that with other people, really came as a reflection of just the shift that I was taking in my own life from focusing a lot of my time and effort on the external things, which was bodybuilding for a long time, into the internal. So I stopped bodybuilding and now I really had the time to really go inward and really focus on the things that were present and things that wanted to evolve within me. So hopefully that answers it a little bit deeper. But yeah, I think often people see things and think that it is like a shift kind of out of nowhere, when in reality, most of the time it is happening beneath the surface the entire time. So for me, a big point in my journey of evolving was when I was going through the experience of divorce. That was like my whole world came shattering down when I was experiencing that. And for me, it was definitely a huge catalyst into deeper personal growth. I knew that in that moment, I could either cling on to the past and try to keep things the way that they were, or I could choose to evolve and choose to really step into the life that I knew I was called to live. It just required a lot of discomfort, hard conversations, and ultimately the hardest decision ever.
Your hardest decision ever. Sorry, what was that hardest decision?
That was divorce.
So your choice to step away.
Yeah, it's because it was something I said I would never do. So in that moment, it was really, really difficult. It's something I didn't believe in. And yet I knew that by choosing to leave, that I was choosing the path of evolving, and that by choosing to stay, I would be choosing for life to remain the same. And for me to accept something that didn't feel in full alignment of my soul. And that was the biggest thing, is that it just at that point felt like a misalignment.
How did you come to identify that within yourself? Like you speak of it being a misalignment with the soul. How did you connect to the soul level to be like, I know I know what I'm in is not where I should be.
It's these subtle, small whispers. So anytime you're seeking to hear those messages from the soul, it's really important to tune out at the external noise of the world, social media, even traffic. Like the noise of traffic alone can put our nervous systems into a dysregulated state. So I think just taking some time to get still, quiet, and then ask yourself some honest questions and give yourself the space to really express the deepest of truths and your deepest desires. And I really believe that when we get clear on what those are, it'll become really clear what the path forward is. I actually have a workshop called the Soul Path Clarity Workshop, and it's intended to help people get really clear on their soul path and what their soul is asking them to do. And the methods that I help, just to give it away, is the
Please.
methods I use to help people is meditation, breath work, stillness, and then journaling prompts. So it's a guided experience where I take people through that so that they can tune into that inner self. And again, I think people just can't hear that whisper because there's so much noise happening externally.
Is that why we find being in places like nature or the beach or anywhere that there's stillness causes the body to become relaxed and you can actually hear yourself? And the more congested or city type places, it feels like a rat race because you're constantly moving.
100%. And energy is everything. And, I'm currently right now in LA, and there's so many people and so many different energies and all the traffic. And it's just a constant energy swirl. So I found that it's so important to make sure to take that time to get out into nature, like you said. And sometimes it is just here in LA at the beach, but even better is if you can get out of your environment entirely. That's part of why I host retreats as well, is because I love providing that space for people to come disconnect from the world that they are comfortable in and used to, and to really connect deeper with themselves in a space that is so nourishing for the soul.
Your perspective on bodybuilding is very interesting, how it placed the foundation for you. I personally did a flick between the two where I loved competing and what it provided, the discipline, the structure, and everything else,
Mhm.
but the aftermath of it, not so much. So it gave me an inner conflict between hating it and loving it and never finding peace with the fact that of what it provided on like a good level. And I hear both sides of it for competing. So it's an interesting perspective for you to be able to anchor into that and be like, it was the foundation that moved me. Could you say that's the same for any sport or the gym or fitness in general?
I think that the physical body is one of the first steps into tuning into the deeper part of ourselves. So, yes, I think gym, movement, whether it's yoga, boxing, athletics, bodybuilding, whatever it is, often it really is people's first step in learning to get to know themselves. And I think about way back in the day, one of my very first business actually was a women's fitness boot camp. And so I hosted multiple boot camp sessions throughout the day and throughout the week. And what I noticed is that something as simple as a workout had these women talking to me one on one, crying, saying how impactful this has been, how positive it's affected their life. And they're being nicer to themselves. They're being nicer to the people around them because they're feeling better about themselves. And often I find it's just that first step into the deeper work. So even with the work that I do now, I don't train anyone. I don't do fitness or nutrition programs. I haven't in many, many years because I do deeper work. And yet I still use the body and fitness as a tool to be able to, one, take care of this beautiful vessel that we've been gifted, which is our physical bodies, but two, to access deeper part of ourselves. So even sometimes through my facilitation, I host something which is like an evolve movement flow. And in this flow, I utilize all of the tools that are my favorite: the body, the breath, the mind, the stillness, the emotions, the heart, in order to reach those deeper aspects. So, yeah, I definitely think that it can be the first step in people's personal journey and of evolving.
How does, because you're very spiritual as well, how do you navigate the spiritual world and the, I guess what I would class as like the 3D world?
Yeah. Because it's all one and the same. So it's kind of like when we talk about the spiritual community. The whole earth is the spiritual community. The whole world is the spiritual community. Everyone is on their own path and their own journey, and no one is above or lower than anyone else. We are all simply on the step that we're on. So, the spiritual world and navigating the 3D for me, it's the integration of knowing that I came here to have the human experience, and I'm a soul who is having this human experience. So within that, it's really honoring all parts of the human experience. I think that's the most spiritual thing that you could ever do, is be fully in the human experience. I think sometimes people can jump into spiritual bypassing the emotions that they're feeling, bypassing really difficult situations that, people are having or the world is encountering. And I think that the path forward is by learning to actually honor and respect all of it, and seeing all of it as purposeful and all of it as different experiences that we go through in life to mold and shape not just us, but the entire collective. And I think once you realize that we're actually not separate, we all come from the same thing, we are all one, that we get to have more love, more compassion, and more grace for everyone else's experience, and even just hold the space for them to go through their own journey of evolving, because again, we're just all on a path. And some of us are more called to, the spiritual path in the sense of, some of us are like seekers in life and we have that natural instinct. And I think I definitely fall under that category. I have always been someone that has really sought out the deeper truths of life. Like, truth to me is the most beautiful thing in the world. I love truth more than my own opinion, more than my own feelings. It's like the nectar of life to me is truth. And so a lot of my spiritual path has been just seeking what the truth is.
When you talk about spiritual bypassing, if I'm very new to the world, what would that look like?
So spiritual bypassing would look like someone just lost their homes in the fires, right? That's a very real reality that we had here in LA. And so much love to everyone that's navigating that. But spiritual bypassing would be talking to someone like that and saying, yeah, but look at all of the abundance that you do have in friendships and this and that, and just completely discrediting the real human experience that they're having because you're choosing to have a spiritual perspective, which to me is not really a spiritual perspective. Again, it's the spiritual bypassing, but it's under the guise of spirituality. So I think sometimes people can use spirituality to bypass challenging things in life, or even sometimes the good things, but it's really just discrediting the human experience and invalidating someone's actual experience. When I think the most spiritual thing you could do again is to just be there as a space of love and allow the fullness of the human experience, not trying to stay away from or shy away from the hardest parts of the human experience.
If I'm hearing you correctly, being there for them, to hold space for them to be able to process or understand what it is that they're going through, whether it be grief, sadness, or anything else, without trying to fix, mend, or make them feel better.
Exactly. Sometimes one of the best things you can do is just because sometimes you don't understand and sometimes you won't be able to understand. But what you can do is just sit there next to them and let them have the fullness of their experience with no judgment. And sometimes that's all people need, is to know that it's okay to feel whatever it is that they're feeling and to feel the fullness of it and not feel like they have to get over it quickly, or like, okay, it's been 3 months since this thing happened, whether it's a loss or a breakup or their home, a tragedy, and feel like, oh, it's been 3 months, I got to get over it now. It's like, no, you're actually allowed to be wherever you're at in your process, and all of it's beautiful. And I do believe that all things that we go through can be used for our spiritual development, but only when we are able to honor the fullness of what that experience is. And the fullness is the light, the dark, the shadow, the good, the bad, everything in between. And I don't even like using good and bad as terms, but that's just an example of
Understand?
how
Yeah.
people perceive it. Yeah,
Mm. No, I completely understand. There's nothing inherently good or bad with us or the world. It just is. And we experience it as it is. And we either take a lesson from it or we don't. What were your hardest truths that you had to come to terms with while you were navigating the different levels, let's call them, that you were going through?
I think some of the hardest truths are just big shifts that I've had to make in life. For me, most of my hardest lessons have come through in the form of relationship. So often it would look like being in love with somebody and coming to the truth, coming to the realization that this is not in alignment with what I know I want for my life or what I'm feeling called to, or it's just a truth that I can't ignore, that this is not reflecting what I know is a part of my life or what I know I deserve. And so why it's so hard is, especially as a woman, is when you've given your entire heart to someone, you love them, you truly want this to work, and yet you're faced with the truth and the reality that if I choose this, I'm going against my soul's path. I'm going against what I know is meant for me. And that's the hardest thing in the world, to really accept that truth. And I find that before the acceptance, often there's a lot of resistance.
Yeah.
I've really had a lot of love in my heart and just fully been in love with this person, realizing that if I choose them, then I'm saying no to me. And that resistance at first is like, but I love them, but I want this to work, but I see all the potential of how this could work. And yet, moving into that acceptance is just saying, but this is what it is. And I have to accept the reality of the truth of what this is. And once you move into the acceptance of it, then it allows you to move into the possibility of being able to let it go. And for me, every single time that I've taken that path, which has been multiple times in my life now, it on the other side of it is something that is so much greater than you can even imagine right now. And it's because when you are holding on so tightly to something, you can't see what's ahead. But if you're willing to just let it go and release it back into the universe, then either I believe that it's going to come back even better, or you're going to experience what really is meant for you, which is going to be more fulfilling than anything that you could ever imagine. So for me, what allows me the ability to let go is that I have the deepest trust. I have the deepest trust in God, source, divine, however you relate to that. I just have that trust that if I'm being guided to make a certain move, to let something go, that there's good things in my future. I don't have a fear that I don't have a fear. I don't have a lack mentality. I think the lack mentality can cause people to hold on longer than they need to. And I think that when we hold on longer than we need to, we create unnecessary suffering for both ourselves and the other person. So often, the most loving thing that you could do, not just for yourself, but for the other person, is to let go when you recognize that it's no longer in alignment.
How could I tell whether it's not an alignment or it's avoidance?
Avoidance in which way?
Let's take a relationship dynamic because that's where we are. If I'm in a rocky part of my relationship, or we're starting to get like a hard part of a marriage relationship, it's been at it for a while. How do I know that I'm telling myself like, or I'm hearing that it's, not for me? But could it be that I just need to look at the things that I don't want to look at? Maybe communication's terrible. Maybe I'm not showing up in a way that I need to, or vice versa. So it's not necessarily not an alignment per se, or could it be avoidance?
I don't think I could just blanket answer the statement, but I understand that you're trying to give more clarity into what avoidance could look like versus what misalignment could look like. So, the number one thing I would say is our relationships are a complete mirror to ourselves. So, in every circumstance, you have to ask, what is this mirroring back within myself? And understand that our relationships are the platform for the deepest inner work. None of your friends and none of your coworkers are going to get as close to you or trigger as many things as our most intimate partners. So when you're experiencing an upset, a challenge, a rupture, it's really important not to point the finger, because it gets really easy to just point the finger and say that they're the problem. Even if they're someone who maybe did something, you have to ask yourself, what is this revealing in me? And also ask, if I was this spiritual being that set up all of these life lessons for me in order for me to learn and grow and evolve, and if I call in and co create every single experience that I have in this life, then why would my soul choose to co create this experience? And you
Mm.
also have to ask, is there a pattern? Is there a pattern in what I'm experiencing right now and in what I've experienced previously in my life or in my relationships? And if you can identify what this is mirroring and how this might be a pattern, then you might be able to pull out from that your soul's lesson in this experience. And then if you'll do your own deep inner work and focus on yourself and focus on doing your own work, even in relationship, then I do think that one of two things will happen. I think either you will do the work and come to a place of full clarity and full knowingness of, I see that maybe this was aligned at a certain point in my life, but this is no longer aligned with where my soul's calling me. And that's why it feels like there's so much resistance, because my soul is literally resisting this. Maybe your body is even rejecting this person, which is really important to pay attention to. Our bodies often reject or we'll turn off from a person before our mind, emotions, and heart catch up to it. But then on the other flip side of things is maybe you do the deep inner work and you realize that they were never the problem, that you actually intentionally called this experience into your life to make some inner things surface that you would have otherwise never experienced and never healed. There's a lot of us that say like we're really incredible and happy on our own. And that's true. Like I'm one of those people. Like I
Maybe.
truly just I have such a beautiful
Yeah.
relationship with myself that I literally love myself and I love hanging
Yeah.
out alone and I have the best relationship. So I get
Yeah.
that. And we don't get the same opportunity to do deep inner work on ourselves when we are alone that we get in relationship. So when we really are in relationship, it really is such a beautiful opportunity to take a deep look at those things that are surfacing. So again, just to kind of summarize all of this, look at what's surfacing, ask yourself how it's a mirror, ask yourself how your soul may have called this in because you are always co-creating your experiences and what the lesson is. Sometimes the lesson is to choose yourself and leave. And sometimes the lesson is to stay and to work through it. But only you can identify what that decision is. And another thing I would say is you can always change your mind, and there's no harm in going day by day. So, really tuning into yourself, doing your own deep inner work, and saying, what feels in alignment right now today? And ask yourself, is my decision coming from fear or is it coming from love? Because maybe you're tuning in and your whole system is having this alarm going off saying, leave, leave, leave. Ask yourself, is this my intuition or is this my dysregulated nervous system that needs regulating so I can come into a regulated, clear state to make a clear decision? Because sometimes we might think it's our intuition, but really it's our dysregulation, it's our trauma, it's our patterns from the past. So, really tuning in. And for me, I know that if my nervous system is regulated and I'm in a mindful, clear, present, receptive state, that I'm going to get in touch with my intuition. If I'm dysregulated, if maybe I'm having a trauma response, if I'm highly anxious, if I'm very much in the mind, I'm going to get fear responses. So I'm going to get a message of fear. So really asking yourself, is it fear or is it love? And moving from that place. And I think then you'll be able to know, is this misalignment or is this avoidance, me avoiding doing the deep inner work on myself?
You mentioned earlier about your body will know before the mind or we come to realize. What ways does that show up?
Yeah, it could be something like you are in conversation with someone and you notice your chest closing a little bit. So it's like a heart closing. It could be something like maybe physical touch doesn't feel like it used to. So maybe you're noticing that your body is feeling more repulsive. And maybe repulsive is too strong of a word at first, but it's on the spectrum of repulsive and going that way. Like your body starts to reject, or you just kind of feel this natural disconnection to what you used to feel connected to. You know, it's really important to pay attention to those little signs. So, noticing when your body is closing, when it doesn't feel open, when it's not desiring the same thing that it used to, are all signs that your body is starting to give you a message that it's closing. And again, that could be a trauma response. It could be that you have things that you need to heal, and it could also be your body's wisdom of saying, hey, I'm not open to this right now. And then it's really important for you to honor your body in that way, you know? And I think a lot of women sometimes struggle to honor their body, especially in relationship. But if your body ever tells you no, you don't have to make a judgment on anyone else for that. You just need to honor your body in that moment. So if your body is saying no, if you're not wanting to engage physically, especially when it comes to intimacy, it's really important to honor yourself by creating the boundary and also having communication around that. You know, even if you are in a loving relationship and this is happening, it doesn't mean your partner's bad. You don't have to have judgment on them, but you can say, I'm noticing that my body is not open to this right now. So I'm going to honor that, and the right partner will be able to support you in that. And then you get to take a deeper look at why this may be surfacing.
From this very like inner, like even how you speak and how you hold yourself comes from like this deep, I'm so responsible for how I show up and what I'm putting out into the world and how somebody else receives it. but even if it's received bad, it's still like something for me. How long did it take you to get there?
Aw,
Because it's impressive, like highly impressive.
thank you. I truly appreciate that so much because I really have devoted myself to this work, and it has taken a lot of work and a lot of intentionality and a lot of facing off with every single part of myself, facing all the deepest truths, and also calling myself forward in learning how to honor myself. So, to answer your question, it took so many moments of intentionally building a relationship with myself. And, I didn't always know what that meant until I started to practice mindfulness and I started to tune into my body, my mind, my emotions, my heart, and I started to ask what those whispers, what those soul whispers were. And, I really had to, I think something that was really hard for me and actually heartbreaking was taking a moment and tuning into all the moments where I didn't honor myself. Maybe I didn't speak up, I didn't use my voice, I didn't create boundaries, I allowed someone else to cross boundaries because I didn't have that strong sense of self. I didn't have that relationship with myself. But what's so beautiful is as you go on this journey of building this relationship with yourself, it's all of the small moments. Every single time that you honor yourself in any way, it could be with the foods that you choose to eat today, instead of just eating things that would be harmful for your body or your digestive system. When you're making a choice of nutritious food that's alive and has plenty of nutrients to make your body feel alive from the inside out. And if you really take a moment of mindfulness and say, wow, like I'm so grateful for the nutrition that exists in this food. And I'm so grateful that it's going to nourish my body and help me feel alive from the inside out. That is an example of you honoring yourself. When you express your boundary to somebody, maybe it's a friend, a family member, a partner, and it's just a simple boundary, and you feel that discomfort, and part of you doesn't want to say it, and it just feels like the most uncomfortable thing ever to express it, but you muster up the courage and you express it, and you say, "Hey, this is a boundary for me." In that moment, you're honoring yourself. It's just like a muscle in the gym. So as you learn to squat, and the first time it's really uncomfortable, and then you do it again, you're a little bit better at it. By the 100th time that you've done a squat, you have excellent performance and movement, and your movement patterns look beautiful, and you feel strong, and you're building strength. The same is true with your relationship with yourself. It's literally a muscle, and you can't discount anything that you do that is honoring yourself, using your voice, and yeah, just honoring that part of yourself, because every time you do it, you're getting stronger and stronger. So it's a something that you build.
When you first started the journey into spirituality, was there ever a moment where you're like, this seems really woo woo?
Not for me. I think there are very extreme ends of any community spectrum,
Yeah.
anything that you go into, there's extreme ends. And I find that I've been able to have a very grounded presence in any room that I walk into and in anything I experience because I have a strong foundation of my relationship with Source, and so that allows me to go into any room and take what's meant for me and leave the rest. I'm pretty unoffendable. And so if anyone is in their element, I provide the space for that. Maybe it doesn't fully resonate with me. And I just choose not to be offended by it, choose not to let it freak me out. And I let them do their thing and I take what's for me and I leave the rest. And I think that's kind of my advice with people too is you can find extremes no matter where you go. And also, not judging it either, because the truth is maybe it's just not resonating with you because maybe it's not where you're meant to go at all. Or maybe it's something that like your soul's not ready for. Maybe you're at steps 1 and 2, and the step 10 is like, what the heck is that? That's okay. You'll know like whenever the student is ready, the teacher appears. So just tune into what feels like it resonates most with you and take that step. And that will take you on your own journey of really tuning into the tools, the experiences, the classes, the teachers that resonate for the step of the journey that you're on.
One belief system or conditioning you had to completely unlearn to transform yourself into the person you are today?
This is a good one. For me, this is a great question. For me, the belief I had to transcend was the agreement and alliance with religion. I grew up in religion. I grew up in Christian religion and going to Christian church. And that really, I first want to honor all the ways in which it has really added to my life. I can't tell you how many messages, people, communities have poured into my life in such a beautiful way, whether it was through prayer or connection or a message that really resonated with me. Or, yeah, just teachings. It really did so much for my life and really was the foundation of my life. So I'm beyond thankful for all of the experiences that I had in that. And yet, when I really was seeking to grow and evolve, I started to ask questions about things that did not resonate with me within that religion, within just the construct of religion and man-made religion in general. And as I asked those questions, it led me on a path that really made me realize that it didn't fully resonate with me anymore. And that was a really hard journey to go through because it's all that I knew. And also because there is a lot of fear-based beliefs in religion. So when I was seeking the path of following source, the divine, the creator, and saying, I'll follow you wherever you take me. And I don't subscribe to a person on a podium. I don't subscribe to a certain building or certain set of buildings. Like I subscribe to my creator. When I was doing that, I believe that the outside perspective, based on the projections that I got from people, I believe that, there's a lot of people that thought I was going down this dark path. It was their fear that was surfacing that was projected onto me, that I was going down a dark path of selling my soul to the devil and was going to, be in all of these really dark places. And
Yeah.
at that point in my journey, I had just made a full commitment and said, God, source, my heart is yours. Wherever you guide me, I will follow. So if I'm feeling guided and led towards going to this meditation class or going into this float tank and praying or going here or there, then I'm going to do it with full freedom, knowing that there's either a lesson in it for me or that this is something that's going to be elevating to my soul. So I had to let go of the fear-based way of living that I learned through religion. And I didn't even realize how deeply rooted it was until I started taking this path for myself and got all the projections. And it did trigger something in me initially. Initially, it triggered the fear of what if? What if I am going down this dark path? What if they're right? Right? Like that's something you have to sit with too. And so I had to sit with all of those questions. And I just what allowed me to take that step forward and to take that path for myself was just that I actually trust God above people's fearful projections. I trust God more than that. So I just knew that if God allowed me to go into rooms where darkness existed, that I had God within me and that nothing that was outside of me could harm me. And so I trusted that God would be with me and lead me through it and guide me out of it, and that I'd have lessons and experiences to share with other people. And I'll tell you what, I have just been on the most beautiful journey since then of freedom, so much freedom, of undoing so much fear that I used to live in. And it's been just such a wild ride. So I think my spiritual journey really has been like one of the coolest experiences I've ever gone on. I can talk about a lot of different experiences I've had with that, but I'll kind of just pause there.
You talk about a lot of evolution, right? Do you still have internal battles with yourself that you might face or might come up with?
Oh yeah, I'm very much human. Definitely, I experience a lot of uh, tug of war with the human self sometimes. And what that may look like is sometimes I make decisions from a very grounded, spiritual, intuitive place like my spiritual side that is guiding me towards something that doesn't really make sense in the physical world. Like maybe it's a decision to, go on this trip when I have all these other things going on, or it's a decision to make a move that like doesn't make sense to anyone else and everyone else thinks that I'm just bouncing around, but I genuinely feel guided towards this place, or I feel guided towards this decision. And so there's that initial tug of war of, but what about all these things? And what I do is I just tune in that moment and realize that those are fear-based thoughts. And as soon as I realize that it's a fear-based thought, I've made a commitment to live my life in love, from love, as love. And when I do that, I know that it's important for me to just take some time to one, honor that part of myself and say, hey, fearful side, have the microphone if you need to have it for a second. Let
Yeah.
it all out. What are all of your fears? What is the deepest rooted fear here? What's the worst case scenario? And it's always like, the worst case scenario is that everyone's going to leave me and then I'm going to be homeless and then I'm going to die. Like, I feel like that's like the summary, the root cause of everyone's fear if we really
Yeah.
got to like the root of roots.
Yeah.
And it's just so silly. And it's not the place that I want to make decisions from or that I want to live my life from. And so for me, it's just utilizing those tools, mindfulness, prayer, and then something that's been very powerful for me to realign myself in moments of maybe overthinking or maybe anxiety or fear is coming back to my foundational truths. I made an Instagram post on on Instagram and it was of my foundational truths and I wrote a bunch of them out, but those foundational truths really helped me to realign. And an example of one of those is I am divinely guided, protected, and provided for. So because of that, it tells me that I'm not here by myself. I'm not alone. I think one of the biggest lies that we've ever all bought in on as a collective is the lie that we are separate, that we are alone. And I think that that leads to a really difficult path of loneliness. And I've had a very, very deep path with that in learning the truth and really realizing the truth. And I think that's why I had to go down that path so far, is so that I could return to the truth that we are not separate, we are not alone, that we are actually divinely guided, protected, and provided for. And so when I have that truth, what it does is, let's say in a moment I am feeling lack or I'm feeling the pressure to provide for myself. When in that moment I say my truth out loud, I'm divinely guided, protected, and provided for, then it turns from how am I going to provide for myself to in which ways is the divine currently providing for me? And let me call it all out. And when I did that, let me tell you what, I have moments where groceries end up on my doorstep, where a friend ends up like taking us out to dinner randomly, like all these like random things start coming in. A friend ended up Venmoing me for watching her dog like months ago when I just did it for free because I loved her as a friend. She's like, "Oh,
Mhm.
hey, remember that time?" and just sent me money through Venmo. And so when you start, and what's happening is you're getting back into the energy of love and abundance. And when you're in the energy of love and abundance, you are a receiver, and we're always receiving, but what we're vibrationally aligned to changes based on where our current vibration is. So when I notice, oh, I'm tuning into a vibration or a frequency of a lack mindset, a not enoughness, or a neediness, then I just know, this is that human thing again. And I get to love her, laugh at it a little bit. And I get to do my deep inner work to bring myself back into my truest form. My truest form for all of us is love, abundance, peace, joy. And so we can honor all parts of ourselves while bringing ourselves back into that energy of abundance. And then it just gets exciting and you get to be really curious about in which ways am I going to be provided for? In which ways do I already have abundance? And again, when you do that, you're just stepping more fully into that.
It's interesting that you mentioned receiving. The the dynamic of masculine and feminine energies is very big on social media, at least from my perspective or observations. One could argue that you live a very disciplined, structured life, which would quote unquote be very masculine. How do you balance the flow in with the discipline and structure?
Yeah, it's interesting because it is the discipline and structure that allows for the flow.
That's
So
interesting.
Yeah, I think about it even in terms of my calendar, right? Like I can create the structure that every day I work from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. and then I allow the flow during, for the first work session. And then I allow the
Yes.
flow to happen in between that. So by having the discipline and structure, it actually gives me more freedom for the things that I really love and enjoy in my life. And also the discipline and structure, it allows me to feel my best. So when I am on point with my training and my nutrition, I am loving my physical vessel by caring for it in the most beautiful way. I also dance and do yoga. And it's interesting, even, people may think that working out is purely masculine, but I'd like to really shift that perspective to say that the feminine is that nurturing, loving, receptive, joyful, playful energy. And for me, training is something I genuinely enjoy and love. And it's actually nurturing myself because I know that when I am moving my body in an active way and I'm challenging myself from a place of love, not from a place of fear, not from a place of not enoughness, not from a place of comparison, but from pure love, that we have these incredible vessels that can move and taste and touch, and we can challenge them in certain ways, and they're super adaptable. I'm like fascinated by the human body. And I think when you learn more of that, you can tune into that loving energy of the most loving thing I could do is do a set of push ups when I feel like I'm not good at push ups, because I can show myself that I am strong, I can do this, and I can get better and build strength. So I think it's all a matter of perspective. And for me, if we were to take out the structure and the discipline and just flow through everything, the truth is things wouldn't really get done. And I think that's why every single person, regardless if you're male or female, that we all have both masculine and feminine energy within us. And the beauty is in the harmonization of the two. It's not in choosing one or the other or feeling like you have to compartmentalize. I'm only in my masculine right now, or I'm only in my feminine right now. It's a really beautiful thing to actually have the two energies come and harmonize so that you can live as the fully integrated version of the most authentic you. And the most authentic you is that harmonization of both energies.
It's like a poetic dance between them both.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it becomes really beautiful. And, I think that there are definitely things people can do to embody more of the different energies. So for myself, it's so funny because I live a very similar lifestyle as I used to, but from a completely different energy. So back in the day, I was much more masculine, heavy energy, and it came from an energy of survival. I was on my own at the age of 16, working multiple jobs, put myself through school, separated from my family, dysregulated nervous system, and I took that and went into building a business, and I created a lot of success for myself that way, and it was really beautiful. But when I went and did my deep inner work, now I still train hard. I have a business. I'm open to opportunities, but I'm doing it from such a deep place of just my highest excitement and what feels in alignment for me and where my intuition is calling me, and from a place of love, from a place of joy, from a place of the desire to nourish the people that are in my life first, myself, and then the other people that are in my life. And when you do that, it just becomes a really beautiful dance, like you said.
Mm. What's the core message you want to leave behind?
Or message that I want to leave behind, I think I could summarize everything in return to love. In every single moment, in every single way, seek to return to love, because love is what you are and it's what everyone else is too. Everything else that you experience and see is a misperception. It's a projection of unhealed trauma, hurt, pain, of what other people have done to this person that you're experiencing or to yourself. Everything is a distortion of the truest essence of who and what we are, which is love. So if someone is not in love, you're not experiencing that, just have a higher perspective, have a little bit of grace, understand that everyone is always doing the best they can with wherever they're at in their journey. and honor yourself, let go when you need to, make the space, have the boundaries. You can love from afar, but really just understand everyone truly is doing the best that they can.
I really like that, like so much.
Thank you.
If today was your last day on earth, what would you share with the world?
It would be what I just shared with you. I think that's the
Amazing.
most important message that I could leave, is we came here to grow, to learn, and to evolve. And if you can have that higher perspective that all life experiences are here for learning, growth, and evolvement, then it can allow you to detach a little bit in a healthy way, meaning allowing what is, just allowing it to be, and to realize that you're the co-creator of your experiences. So, yeah, if I really was going to die, I'd really want people to know that too. You are the co-creator of your experience. If you're
Mm.
experiencing something that you don't want to be experiencing, understand that you co-created it in some way. Maybe it's a deep lesson for your spiritual growth and involvement, or maybe it came from an unconscious place and you didn't even realize that you were co-creating. And what it does, it puts the power back in your hands to say, okay, I know this is not what I want to be experiencing. So, what do I want to create in my life? And how can I co create with the divine something that would be my highest excitement, something that would be fulfilling? And, really realizing that even in dark moments, maybe it's a toxic relationship, you're thinking, why would I co create this? You did at some level. And so, rather than seeing yourself as a victim, you can really step into an empowered place to say, well, then I choose to co create this no more. I choose to let this go so I can co create something that's more beautiful.
Emily, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on. Thank you so much for coming on and in sharing your insight. I know I got a lot from it, so I hope anybody that's listening also gets a lot from it. Where can people find you?
My Instagram is my name, Emily Hayden. It's Hayden. So you can find all of my links there. I host retreats. I have a podcast, Evolve with Emily podcast. I have my signature program, the Butterfly Effect, which is a program for doing the deep inner work, and a lot of other meditations and things available there. So, whichever way you want to connect, whether it's sending me a DM on Instagram, checking out my feed, or coming for a meditation or a retreat, I'm happy to experience and connect with you.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Your questions were wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.